Welcome to today's episode, everyone. We've got a very exciting guest for you guys. For those of you just joining the podcast, we're E.N.G Media, and we specialize in helping software and technology companies scale their revenue. So if you want to learn how to take your software or tech business to the next level, make sure to stick around. And if you're interested in a free growth consultation, just drop us the word growth in the DMs. But without further ado, Shripal, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Really excited to dive into Next League and all the awesome things that you're working on.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled that you asked me to join. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. I'm glad we finally are able to get this podcast done. And so maybe, you could start by just telling us a bit about what Next League is and really what your core areas of focus are.
Sure. So Next League is a company that's about 3.5 years old. The founders uh, had a prior company that they sold to Infront Media, and then
Mhm.
um, that was really focused on like website development and apps. And then our CEO had a different vision and
Uh,
launched Next League and then bought back the original company about a year into it. But I think what Next League is today is we try to be a differentiated technology advisory and solution provider.
yeah.
And I think while there are a lot of consulting firms, we are the only, we try to really focus only on sports. So our focus is only in sports, and we don't do anything outside of that.
Yeah.
So that allows us to really be a true technology strategy and advisory firm that can provide ROI focused counsel, but it also means we're architecting and operating um, the complex technologies or platforms for some of the largest sports brands in the world. So NASCAR, for example, we power are one of our largest clients. We did
Nice.
stuff. We helped build the website and apps for the TGL. We had folks on the ground on site during their inaugural season, which was such a huge success.
Wow.
U.S. Olympic Committee is one of our clients, and all the 60 governing bodies, under them.
Uh,
Um, and then, we work with many of the top pro sports leagues,
mhm.
um, and then individual teams. So we do from individual strategy projects to build out websites and apps to full, live event support.
Wow.
There were some major events this past weekend, and we had staff on the ground supporting these live sports events, so that as adjustments or things are needed with technology, because it's driving so much more from not just advertisers or the sponsors,
Mhm.
but to the fan experience. As people are setting up sporting events in other cities and things, they need
Uh,
that type of support. So that's why we're all encompassing in how
yeah.
we do things. And that was really attractive to me when I was thinking on how I wanted to personally come back into sports for a company that was only 3 years old working with the top leagues. That was
Yeah.
very exciting for what I was hoping to do in terms of driving innovation, and with the use of AI, which is some of my personal passions.
100%. That's awesome. And really on the topic of AI specifically, I know that you are a columnist as well with John Wall Street. So writing and really pioneering AI in sports marketing. Could you speak to maybe some of the biggest things you're seeing right now in the sporting industry revolving around AI? Like how are some of the companies and the organizations that you're working with, like what kind of AI solutions outside of maybe just mobile and website, app development are these organizations really looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's looking for ways to drive efficiency, right, for revenue generation and then for cost containment. And and it was interesting. So before I had my John Wall Street column,
Mhm.
I wrote a book, and I wrote it on my iPhone and I published it, but it was based around this concept around how to drive more ticket sales, right, with the use of AI. And
Oh,
what's
wow.
interesting is a lot of ticket offices now are using different forms of AI, from dynamic pricing to chatbots to lead gen organization and automated follow up. So that's
Mhm.
becoming the norm. There are companies uh, that are trying to gain wide stream adoption. There's a company called Wolf Cycle and Conversica, two AI based
Mhm.
products. Satisfy Labs, another that does an AI-based chatbot. So that's one example. In
Wow.
the sponsorship and advertising space, you're seeing companies using AI-based products like SportsBiz that use computer vision, and so there's like trajectory for the ROI of like different logos and things on people's jerseys and the calculation.
Oh wow.
And then I think so you see across all aspects of sports, you're finding then um, others are using AI for driving their marketing segmentation and their uh, uh, targeting of fans. So
Uh,
there's a platform called Attentive that uses SMS and AI that has works with 40% of all sports teams in North America.
oh wow.
To I've been asked about people looking at new stadium constructions. What should they be looking at? So I think with the Los Angeles Clippers and the NBA launching their new stadium, which
Mhm.
got a lot of publicity, when people walk through the gates, there's signage that will actually greet you with your name. And that's all using the latest in computer vision and AI. So
Wow.
now with a lot of properties looking at these $500-600 million stadium renovations, one of the number one questions we get is what should we be thinking about as part of that renovation with the best use of AI to really improve that fan experience, right?
100%.
So it's really going across the gamut. And then I've been asked by other governing bodies how to
Yeah.
use AI just to drive back office efficiency for things like invoice processing, because when you've got thousands of employees at a major governing body,
Yeah.
and it's like something like just the use of AI to process invoices or department allocations,
Uh-huh.
or help desk tickets, right? Like just typical things that are in the market in large scale enterprise organizations. You're
100%.
getting asked by that too. Um, and then there's stuff going on the performance side that I'm not at liberty to speak to, but a lot of people that are now drafting players and things
Hmm.
have their in-house teams with the use of AI.
Wow.
I went to see a, uh, a a NASCAR race team,
Uh-huh.
and they had um, some of the most advanced things I had seen in terms of their own like tunnel with uh, cameras using computer vision to actually evaluate the car that's being
Wow.
produced to make sure it's in line with the NASCAR specifications. They then do other simulations for
Yeah.
their pit crews, all using like AI and computer vision. And it was fascinating to me with like force plates and, all the different technology that
Right.
I never even appreciated on the competition side, that just for a racing team, the amount of like technology and like forward thinking that's existing today is just mind blowing.
Right. 100%. Yeah. So it really sounds like, some of these organizations are looking for all types of different solutions when it comes to implementing AI into their business, whether it's just like back office efficiency or like you mentioned, even on the performance side of things. So it's highly interesting to see like all the stuff that you guys are kind of getting your hands in. Do you have maybe a specific use case where next league work with, and maybe you don't have to, I guess, mention the client's name, but maybe a use case where you guys implemented an AI solution and you drove like a miserable result. It was maybe a really cool project or with a really cool organization. Is there anything that comes to the top of your mind?
Yeah. So we're being asked to do a lot of training on generative AI. So that's your Chat GPTs, your Microsoft Copilots, and
Uh,
others. So we worked with two uh, ticket offices of,
mhm.
and for different sports properties. And in that training for, the ticket sales reps, the efficiencies were immense in that things that would normally take 3 days to set up new campaigns, they were getting done in less than 3 hours. So the efficiency improvements that ultimately led to probably a 15% increase in actual sales, because
Yeah.
now the managers had more time to
Mhm.
actually spend with individual reps, was a byproduct.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
we're also seeing a lot of use of AI in the marketing technologies, right? For better targeting, segmentation, real time sending. I was using that attentive example of
Uh-huh.
clients that are using, right, integration there, um, to other just AI based applications on your websites, right? For like
100%.
using machine learning for the statistical modeling and things. So we see a different gamut of things.
100%. Yeah.
And-
No, and it's super interesting as well. And if let's just say like, somebody out there is a potential, sports organization, or maybe they're a part of a league, or some type of company that way, what are some things that you would want them to know about Next League that really sets you guys apart? Because from my perspective, I don't really, I haven't heard of a company that deals or really specializes in consulting in the sports industry specifically related to AI, but I'm sure that you guys probably have competitors. Like, what is really your guys' unique selling point, I guess?
yeah, so I think what was attractive to me when I chose to join was right, like there are other consultancies that work in sports. Um, you know, uh, right, you can just listen to any major broadcast,
Yeah.
right? You'll hear about IBM, Deloitte, Accenture, right, of the world, all the major consultancies.
Hmm.
McKinsey has a sports to see a full service technology offering working with the biggest leagues that was only focused in sports, I think is unique. And the
Yeah.
reality is, we're not selling a product,
Hmm.
right? So, what was really attractive to me, because I wanted to bring my experience of having previously worked in the C
Hmm.
suite of an NFL team, agency, I've been at, on the retail side, was that our CEO believes that by putting smart people in front of our properties, we can help drive the biggest impact, right? And that allows us to help both with the strategy and the execution. And
100%.
in this day and age, when you actually find a boss who is actually saying, I value people at the center and everything else, which is kind of counterintuitive for a technology strategy company, that
Yeah.
that alone, I think, speaks to the uniqueness in our DNA, right? Is that we're valuing the human to
Hmm.
really be that catalyst for growth, which is really for anyone that's looking to then have autonomy to create an um, innovation for
Yeah.
companies like that. That is one of the to me, one of the best drivers. That's what those attributes of Next League as a company were also the same attributes as to why I chose to join Next League when I had other opportunities, was that I was really looking for a place, and these points of differentiator I thought were just interesting. It
Yeah.
kind of, I felt, would allow uh you know that it really allows for a lot of flexibility, because we're not beholden to specific products, right? We're not like, when I was in the retail space, they'd
Uh-huh.
be they'd be similar companies, but they would only be brought in as like the Adobe Magento e-commerce integrator or Salesforce integrator.
Right.
And and it was almost like they could only work on certain products because they were already paying to be the platinum provider of
Right.
so and so technology, like Microsoft has their certificate. And the fact that we have chosen to stay product agnostic also
Mhm.
allows us to really provide the best solution for the client. And if they have, in sports, many times uh, properties will have sponsorships with a specific technology. It could be a Microsoft or an Amazon AWS.
Yeah.
And we can advise them on, as they're considering that sponsorship, the pros and cons of the technology, but then also work within any technology stack, because
Oh,
we're
wow.
no longer beholden to it. There's no preferred provider. So I
Yeah.
think all of these things are really things that are somewhat unique, which has
100%.
allowed for the fast growth for Next League over those three plus. It's barely 3.5 years old,
Yeah.
and for the growth that we've seen, I think it's partially due to those things.
That's awesome. Yeah, you guys have definitely experienced a massive growth just from what I've seen with, certain organizations you've worked with on your website and on LinkedIn as well. And, if you don't mind me asking, I'm highly interested. Like, what NFL team were you previously working with?
That I work for personally. So
Yeah.
I was a chief strategy officer 10 plus years ago now at this point, for
Mhm.
what's now the Washington Commanders. So when I was with what was
Okay.
then the Washington Redskins, um, I was chief strategy officer. We were top three in revenue in all of North
Oh, wow.
America back then. Um, we within Next League are working with different teams, but I'm not at liberty to
Sure.
speak to them right now. But I spent a little over 9+ years working in the NFL as a senior executive for what
Wow.
was then a top three team and overall revenue. So that gave me a lot of context in how to run different divisions. So when I look at our customer, I can relate to someone who is trying to sell tickets or a sponsorship or was running 4 different TV shows and trying to
Right.
deal with the broadcast department. Because all those folks, in my case, I was driving a lot of that,
Mhm.
or so I can appreciate those challenges, right?
Yeah.
Of producing TV shows in your own practice facility while your players are going to practice, and then trying
Wow.
to have your sponsors, and then going to, away games, and just that, you know, all the sort of entertainment, and then e-commerce. And early on, we had 15 actual physical retail stores outside of our stadium, and
Wow.
managing a retail business, right? So like all of those challenges have helped inform me elsewhere. And then I've also been on the agency side of sports.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that also, working with other teams in that capacity too. So I've kind of seen it from both sides.
Yeah. That's it's highly intriguing as well. And what really stood out to you with Next League was that they focus on putting like the right people in the right place rather than just the products that are essentially needed. So the person could come out and make sure that these organizations are actually working with the right products. And so I could totally see how there is value in that. And another question that I had really from a marketing perspective as well, how are you bringing more awareness to everything that Next League is doing? Some of the large organizations that you guys have worked with and sports teams as well. Like, is there any specific strategies that you guys are deploying to really bring more awareness and educate the market?
Yeah, so I think we really try to drive a lot in terms of thought leadership. As I said, um, starts with our CEO. We have
Hmm.
a podcast that he has, someone maybe on your podcast, featuring some of the top um, executives all across sports. It's not just our clients.
Nice.
So we've had, the chief strategy officer of Major League Baseball. We've had, the CEOs and commissioners of different governing bodies. Um, so by bringing in from that
Hmm.
to content, many of our employees will publish thought leadership pieces. We have a former NFL player, Kenyon Rashid,
Hmm.
who is focused in our uh, around college sports. So in the U.S., there is something going on with name, image, likeness.
Uh-huh.
He, has written thought leadership pieces of what that means, right? Because the regulations and laws have just changed as there was some major um, changes in Congress here in the U.S. Last week, and so he's right at the forefront there.
Wow.
Um, One of my other colleagues, she previously worked, for the PGA Tour, helped
Hmm.
launch the PGA Tour in Latin America, can really speak to that market. I publish a biweekly AI and sports column for John Wall Street, as you mentioned earlier. And out
Hmm.
of that, that's actually led to a lot of my meetings with some of the top, VPs and SVPs at some of the top sports leagues.
Wow.
Um, you know, uh, because the content will then pose a curiosity, and then
Yeah.
they'll ask, and that's led to a lot of meetings that way. And, and
100%.
and I've met owners as well of individual teams coming
Wow.
out of the content that was created. So I think thought leadership can really go a long way. I also have a podcast that I produce that's actually features AI voice it like voice AI, just as a
Hmm.
way again to demonstrate the technology, but it's also
Wow.
leveraging all the content I've written. So I think finding innovative ways to put the technology into our thought leadership piece can also be a way to drive awareness. We're also we make sure we, just like any other market, right, having a major presence at the relevant industry trade shows. But because of the thought leadership piece, it will, I think, allows to then facilitate really nuanced conversations where we're not just trying to, because everyone gets inundated. I hate, I don't know,
Uh,
be all like, I get calls all the time, right, of like people trying to sell you a service, or do you need this technology or whatever,
right.
and I think when you can do it from a thought leadership piece and content based, you can have conversations that aren't just transactional. And
Right.
that I think is really important if you're trying to really build a true awareness and long term relationships, right? You don't want it to come. off of just a tactical transaction. You want to be able to provide real value.
Yeah.
And I think our CEO really leads by example with that.
I love that. So what you're saying is like you guys through leveraging thought leadership and podcasts have been able to build like meaningful relationships in the industry that have inevitably turned into business. And I really love that outlook on it as well because it just seems more organic to me. If you guys are leading with value up front with the content that you're putting out and helping people, educate them on a lot of the AI solutions that are available and maybe some of the stuff that you guys are working on that can help them. If they use it, great, and it's a business relationship. But even if they don't, you're still leading with that value up front, and at least there's a value first, I guess, driven relationship on the front end. So I appreciate you sharing some
Yeah.
insight into how
And
you guys are doing that.
and that's allowed for things like I've just done a virtual panel with a private equity firm for different sports leagues they invested in with some other folks. And I think when you those are the type of relationships that can be really impactful when the investors in these properties are the ones putting you out there.
Yeah.
But it starts with the same principle of we're providing value, right? We're not selling a service to these properties. The reason there was trust is like, okay, you're going to come and provide real value to these executives for the companies we've invested in. But then
Right.
that gives you an audience, it builds some level of trust.
Yep.
And so a lot of the type of it may not be a wide audience or very visible, but like in some ways it's even more impactful because now
Yep.
because it's in a closed setting, people feel free to ask real questions that they may
Right.
not be willing to ask in a public setting. And then if you can help provide some type of insight or value to someone's true problem, then
Hmm.
hopefully when the time is right, you're in the consideration set for when they need help, right? That they're willing
100%.
to just call versus just trying to RFP out things, right? Like that's the
Yeah.
idea is that you want to be that first call because you've built some trust.
Yeah, you led with value, so you're not put in that. You take yourself out of the transactional frame, which I love. I mean, you guys are working on so many awesome different things, like in the space. What I'm seeing on social media. Really, my next question would be, what are some goals for next league in the next 12 months? Like, are you guys looking to work on any specific kinds of projects, or really, what does that look like from your guys' perspective?
I mean, I think we're looking to really drive innovation, right? We go with the side that we want to be on what's next. And I think for us, we're starting to really engage in a lot around um, AI based training and strategy.
Hmm.
And and that's fun, right? But what it to this is not the company, this is me personally, but I think it helps. It's like what I'm more excited about is actually 6 months from now,
Hmm.
because on the back of the strategy and the training, people are going to be thinking about real innovative like problem sets and solutions.
Hmm.
And if we can be there, 6 to 12 months, you asked 12 months from now. So in 6 months from now, these strategy and training engagements can lead to conversations where we're now creating really innovative and impactful solutions. Then a year from now, we've now launched things that are going to be impacting the lives of millions, if not tens of millions of people. And that's really exciting, right? Like that's
100%.
like 2010 early days social media when you were helping to launch these properties, right? And you're generating millions of fans, or that first iPhone app,
Yeah.
back in the day, or the first iPad app, like how transformational that was.
Yeah.
That I think is we're coming to that next moment like that hasn't been around for a while.
Yeah.
And I also think in loyalty, we're seeing a similar shift. I think that's also going to be something that we're going to see. But I think I'm really most excited about what's happening in the AI space because I believe we're starting to see this pattern of like people want to get trained to upskill their staff.
Hmm.
And then that's going to lead to strategy. That's going to lead to real solutioning. And I think
100%.
because we're leading with a human centric approach as a company,
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people that are worried about how because with AI, there's a lot of fear too. Like I'm going to lose my job because people are going to
Right.
look to just automate. And I think you want an advisor, a thought partner that can show the human accelerant of this. I always tell
Yeah.
people, to me, I view it like having 10 interns because
Hmm.
it's really a accelerant of things I can do more, so I have more free time. and a skill augmentation. And I think if we can build that type of connection, we're also improving, hopefully, the work life balance for a lot of people as well, while we're
100%.
also improving revenue and experiences. So, I mean, I'm really excited about the next year.
Yeah.
I just believe, like, it's something that I thought about a lot when like I said, when I wrote my book, to then see, and the market was still like a year ago, right? Like, I'd have a lot of conversations
Hmm.
outside of Next League, and you could see people are like, it's interesting, it's cool, but, like, all of a sudden now it feels like the industry's ready to just like move,
Yeah.
and that's super exciting.
100%. Yeah, no, it's awesome. And really what stands out to me is like you guys are training people in the game on the front lines, whether it's through loyalty or whatever projects they're working on. And so I think that really will be the secret or the key to driving actual transformation in the sports space is like the innovation that's going to come from, a lot of the trainings and the strategy that you guys are deploying for really who you're working with. And with really that being the goal, I always love to ask this question. I always get a different answer, but would love your feedback. Like, let's just say we were hypothetically speaking and you guys could, next league could wave a magic wand and it could solve one thing maybe holding you back from your guys' goal. Do you really know maybe what that thing would be?
You don't, I think, and we're working on it, right? It's like finding more and more of the right mix of talent, of people who understand the sports business,
Yeah.
um, and are also solving the most, like, using AI in the most innovative ways. Because I think the more we can align ourselves with having as many of those type of resources,
Hmm.
it's going to allow us to provide more value, right, for folks. So, like, I think we're at a point where, like, there's going to be, it's kind of like what we saw, like, in the other industries, right? Like, of who's going to have the right roster of the right people with this experience.
Yeah.
That's going to be such a huge advantage for what you're trying to do. And I think as we look to recruit, the right resources, as we continue to scale and grow,
Mhm.
that's going to ultimately be necessary so that the the human, because we are so human centric, there's a capacity issue,
Mhm.
right? If it's just if a service is a sort of based off of one person. So I think the
Mhm.
more we can build, right, redundancies in people, that allows us to continue scaling without worrying about how we're going to resource, because we're going into such new frontier.
Yeah.
The more people you have that experience, the faster you can do things where otherwise you might have to, either train,
Yeah.
build, or you're going to run into a capacity issue of certain talent, and then you're going to have, that could be the limitations and growth. So I think, but I mean, any business is going to run into similar challenges, but
Yeah.
those are the things that we're trying to solve for.
100%. I think what you guys are doing in the thought leadership aspect of things, you getting on podcasts like this, you guys really will attract, I guess, really the right talent. But I love that you guys take a human centric approach. A lot of AI companies that I talk to, it really seems to be that way instead of these companies just pushing strictly for AI only, and really without focusing on people at
Yeah.
the forefront. So,
And we really have staff across the globe. So that's, I think, what was also attractive is, like, I'm a big believer. You got to go find the
mhm,
best talent anywhere. And, I have some of my favorite experiences. I told you this before we started the podcast.
mhm,
I was working for a company that was based in Perth, and some of my favorite technologists that I ever met,
mhm,
um, came out of that company's office in Perth, and I otherwise wouldn't have ever thought to find that type of technical talent there, just
oh
from
well,
my prior experience. So I think the fact that we're also looking at a global staff
yeah.
is exciting. So it allows us to go find the talent anywhere. So I'm a big proponent of that too.
How awesome. Yeah, that's got to be super exciting. And if there is anybody that, maybe they feel like they're a fit or they watch this podcast or any of your other content and they want to reach out, I guess outside of New League's website, what would be the best social media platform for them to go and connect?
Sure. So besides going to Next League's website, you can go to LinkedIn. You can find any of our senior executives. I'm also on, Twitter, Instagram, and then uh, you know, you they can also, so I think they can find us on any of those platforms.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I'll be sure to include links in the description of this video. I highly recommend that you guys do go check out Next League and all the awesome stuff that Shripal is working on. I know he's making a ton of awesome posts on LinkedIn about AI in the really in the sports industry, and everything that's going on with generative AI. And I mean, really, you name it. So, highly recommend you guys go check out
Yeah.
Shripal and all of the stuff that he's publishing. And is there anything that you wanted to add on to that front before we wrap up here?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love, if you're looking at thought leadership, please check out my column that I write for johnwallstreet.com on AI and sports. Some of it will also be on our nextleague.com website. And then I just launched my own AI podcast where I'm looking for feedback because it uses two uh, AI voices for having
Oh, wow.
conversation called the AI Playbook. So just launched that over the weekend, and I'm looking to get feedback because it's my first foray of using AI to create conversations based off of written content I had.
Mhm.
And I'm looking to kind of get a view on what you think. So if you hear this, would love for you to check it out because I'm really looking for real feedback as I'm just testing new technology into new, media and content areas. Would love to get more folks just willing to test and react to things that we're creating. So that'd be huge.
Awesome. I'll be sure to include a link to that as well. And is that going to be on YouTube, that the new podcast that you're launching?
Um, Eventually, right now it's our next league podcast on YouTube. Mine is this one's on Spotify and Amazon, and then I'm working on getting it to Apple and YouTube and everywhere else. So that'll be part of my to do since I wanted to just get it going. Got 3 episodes down. I've got a fourth one I'll probably release today, tomorrow, and then I'll start working on the syndication part of this.
Nice. That's gonna be awesome. And those two voices that you're communicating with, are they trained on basically all of your data and kind of the work that you've done in the space? Really?
So the I train it based off of like a specific content that I've written, and
Oh no.
then I'm using a company called 11 Labs that has different voice
Mhm.
features. So I'm testing that. There's also an opportunity to potentially train it to simulate my voice. I'm not as comfortable doing that for
Sure.
this purpose. So but I wanted to really play with this because I see a lot of voice. I'm having voice AI discussions around like replacing IVR systems. So I've created a voice AI um,
Oh wow.
ticket agent profile with other developers and other views. So I believe voice is going to be one of the biggest applications around AI that's underrepresented. So I'm looking at new forms of just trying to test that. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to launch the podcast.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, you guys have to go to Shripal's LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to him and message him if you have any questions about his podcast and you guys want to check it out. I'm sure he'd be happy to send it over to you. So
Absolutely. So, Tyson, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
absolutely. It was a pleasure. No, thank you for all the insights and for your time today. And other than that, guys, we will catch you in the next video.